Electric Jam Podcast.
Greetings and salutations, everyone. Welcome to the Electric Jam Podcast. I'm Christopher, and I'm here with Richard, as usual. If you don't know who we are, you can check out our website in the description of this podcast. Electric Jam has guitar reviews, gear testing, and tons of info on recording. Richard, how are you?
Yeah, I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm fantastic. I'm always pretty impressed that I get that in with one breath.
Yeah, no, it's good. I'm always fine for it, and it's not pre-recorded either. I mean, anyone.
No, it's not. It sounds the same every time.
Yeah, but it's done every time. It's yeah, that's commitment. Live take every time.
I've memorized it, but you know, I thought about doing that actually in the beginning, like having a pre-recorded intro, but then you wouldn't be able to tell them apart. But I guess you can anyway. So, oh well.
Yeah, well, you know, it makes sense. It saves a bit of time, but you know. Get to do it right every time. That's the mood, that's the pace, the cadence.
It does. It does. So not a whole lot of news this week, strangely enough. The biggest thing that happened, at least on my end and on Richard's, and it's something that we're both really interested in, is the new Schecter Black Ops. And the Black Ops is actually an older series. Schecter put them out, I think, in 2008 or 2009 for the first time. And they were super cool because they were like completely blacked out. So you had a matte black finish. All of the bridges were black, the tuners, everything, you know? And
yeah, that murdered out look looks really good.
Yeah, straight murdered out. And it looks like they're doing that again. And the first one that they've released is the PT model with a single humbucker in the bridge, which, I mean, you can do a lot with that.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, we were just talking about how,
well, isn't there?
Yeah, there's a 7 and 8 string with the same setup too, just a single pickup.
Man,
and
string
I mean, yeah. I think.
See, I really like. Cool. I always really loved that Steph Carpenter, the green Telecaster style 7-string he had. It's like it's like green and sparkly, but with like
they made a purple one too.
Yeah, but that green one, oh man, I really love that guitar. Every time I look at it, I'll just find myself thinking about it because I don't really play 7 strings, and I'll just suddenly just be thinking about it and be like, oh, maybe I'll get that this year, but I never do. So I love that like murdered out, like the all black kind of thing. It's just very metal, but it's called Black Ops, so kind of what you expect, I guess.
Yeah, and I think they're bringing it back. I think if they're doing it with this model, they'll probably do it with the C1, which is, you know, the standard double cutaway Stratocaster style body. Yeah, they'll probably do it with that. They'll probably do it with all the other shapes that they're famous for. Because that's what they did in 2008 and 2009, and those guitars sold like crazy. I remember everybody had one there for a little while. But
they have got a lot of metal aesthetic to it. They are very. I mean, I like anything like that, like cars blacked out like that. Not the windows, because that's really quite chavvy. But you know, like when everything else is kind of black and chrome, monochrome.
Something really stuck out to me, and I don't know if it stuck out to you in the picture that I sent you, but it has a 3-way switch. And I was like, wait a second. Why does it have a pickup toggle?
Yeah, why does it? I don't. I did see that, but it didn't register with me.
So that pickup has 3 voicings. So it has a more traditional voicing, like a PAF, like a Gibson pickup. It has an active voicing, so more for metal. And then it has a single coil voicing, which will make it sound more like a regular Telecaster.
Nice. That's cool. Yeah. I love the Telecaster, like that cut. I just really like the shape of the guitar. I always find myself gravitating towards one. I did have one ages ago, but I got rid of it because it wasn't a Fender, and it was pretty cheap and it wasn't great. We actually had it into test, but I didn't review it because I wouldn't have said anything nice about it. So I was kind of like, I might as well just not review it, because if I do, I'm just going to just unload on this thing and, you know, It wouldn't be very good because it was god awful. I mean, I gave it to somebody because it was because in the town where I live, they had a lot of Ukrainian refugees move here. So family moved around the corner, and their dad played guitar, and he obviously had to leave everything. So I was like, well, I've got a spare guitar you can have. It's absolutely crap. I didn't tell that, but I gave it to him. But he seemed to like it, so there you go.
I mean, it's better than nothing if you're in that situation. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. And the 8-string one's badass. Look at that.
Yeah, it's cool, isn't it?
What's the scale length on it? It looks really short on the 8-string as well.
So,
like it looks shorter than the. It looks shorter than the 6-string. Maybe that's the pictures just making it look all weird.
Well, because it's a fan fret, it technically is the same size on one side. Okay. So yeah, the way the fan fret works, one side is, I think, 27 inches in scale length, and then the side where you go wheedly wheedly, where the high E string would sit, that is 25.5. So that's the standard scale. So when you look at it with the fan frets, it looks kind of skewed in your mind. If that makes sense.
It's a really nice looking guitar. I really like that. I mean, I'd never go for an 8-string, but that one I would definitely be tempted. Sorry, then literally I pressed my AirPod into my ear and it started playing Boards of Canada in my AirPods, so I couldn't hear a word you were saying. And I always really panic when that happens because I think, oh God, it's going to go out and people will hear it on the live stream. Not the live stream, but the recording. But you can't. I just hear it in my head. So I could just hear the opening to Music Has the Right to Children playing and you talking about guitars at the top of it. It kind of worked, actually, because they love their samples, don't they?
You know, that album really brought me back when you sent it to me the other day. I'd completely forgotten about Boards of Canada. Yeah,
I think a lot of people do. They were big, like 15 years ago, 20 years ago. They were like a real big deal, but they kind of haven't done anything since 2013, I think. So it's been a while. They're due a release.
Huh.
Don't quote me on that. My electro knowledge isn't great, but I'm pretty certain it was the last one was Campfire, I think, and that was when I was at uni. And that was no, it wasn't. No, that's a lie. It was. What was it called? I was listening to it the other day.
Richard's Impeccable Memory.
It's awful.
It cannot be pegged.
It's just getting worse and worse. Tomorrow's Harvest. That's the latest one, I believe. But based on
I remember
memory.
them just being huge because I had a couple of hipster friends in Atlanta, and they were like, "Have you heard about the Mars Volta?" You know, those kind of guys. And that was when Mars Volta just first came out, and they were really into Boards of Canada. So I would say that was around 2002, 2003. And
that would have been like Geodaddy time when that came out.
Yeah, I remember listening to it and thinking it was kind of like a nicer version of Aphex Twin.
Yeah, that's it. It's
not quite as abrasive as Square Pusher or Aphex Twin is, you know?
Yeah, it's very, very mellow, very lo-fi. But the whole thing is that they used really old equipment. We did an article on the site about it because it kind of inspired me because I hadn't listened to them for ages, and then I had some on in the car, and I was like, ooh. And I started thinking about the gear and stuff and how it sounds so like nice and organic and thick and creamy and dreamy. And I did some digging and stuff, and I knew quite a lot about some of my friends when I was growing up was really into them, and they just use real kind of not knockoff, but old samplers. It's all analog.
That does make a difference.
Well, they record for instance, one of the things they do is they'll record to cassette and then play it through, record samples or beats to cassettes and then play it through speakers, record that, use that as a sampler, run that through a sampler, and then there's so many interesting things like on the Campfire Head Phase, which is an album I really like because they started introducing guitars. And I think the second track on that's just like, I think he's just picking like an A minor chord, like doon, 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 and then they just have a sample of that, and then they just drop it an octave, and then another octave, and then it loops back around again, and that's kind of the
that
song.
sounds so cool.
Yeah, they're a really, really great. I want to say band, but they're not a band. Outfit, I believe, is what you call electro people.
I like Outfit. I think that
Outfit.
works.
Electro outfit.
Yeah. An electro outfit. Yeah, that works.
Yeah. Very good. Well, I mean,
actually have
2013 has been ages, so they probably are due a new album.
Yeah, if they're still doing it. They might have went on to be producers or do side projects. I don't know. We're gonna have to look this up now after the episode. I'm gonna.
Well, they have
to do
nearly 1.2 million monthly listeners on Spotify. So
good lord.
yeah.
Yeah. So people know who they are.
yeah. Most people do anyway. And if you haven't, check it out because they are very good. It's electro, obviously, so it's not kind of outside our usual metal recommendations, but it's very cinematic, very.
It's a great palate cleanser because I listened to it the other day when you sent it to me, and I was writing an article for the site, and it was just really pleasant, because none of it's really abrasive, and I don't know, it's a vibe, it's a mood,
It really is. It's very.
I like it.
It's quite cold, and quite clinical, but in a nice way. It's like a really. I always makes me feel like I'm walking somewhere on a really bright, freezing cold summer, winter morning where the sun's out, but it's dead cold. I mean, you won't know about that because you live in the south, but in the UK, you can have
we have a
winter
few
days
days like that. Yeah,
where it's frosty and the sun's out, blue sky, it's crisp. Yeah, it's good. But they're from Scotland as well, so it's probably hard boiled into their whole aesthetic anyway. Except it's not very sunny there ever. It's usually just overcast.
Yeah, I hear it's gross there pretty much all the time.
Yeah, which is a shame because it's a really beautiful place. So when the sun's out, there's no place like it. But that's very, very rare in my experience. When I've been there quite a lot of times, it's usually always pretty. The weather's always pretty ropey.
It's funny because I have a student who's asking me about recording like that. And he has an old Tascam TD series, I think it is. I think it's a 488, and it's a tape machine,
Yeah.
And he wants to somehow capture the band in the tape machine and then put it into a DAW.
Mm-hmm.
So that way he can mix it. And I was like, that's a really interesting idea because when I was in Broken Glow, we did an album on tape, but that was a big reel-to-reel machine, and we did it like you would have done a album in the 80s. There wasn't any computers used on that album at all, and I think I've sent it to you to listen to before. And we had a good time doing it, and there's some mistakes in there, but that's because it's people actually playing in a room, so it wasn't really doctored a whole lot. So what he wants to do is something really interesting, and it's kind of like Boards of Canada, where they run everything analog, but at some point it has to go into a DAW.
Yeah, they do. Well, they do use Logic Pro. They use Logic Pro to arrange everything. Yeah, but it's all the sounds are created using analog. Old synths, really inexpensive Casio keyboards, samples from videotape. They got their name from some. It was from the Tourism Board of Canada. It was a video that they used to have in the house, and they watched it, and it had these nice music on it, kind of elevator style music, and that's where they got the name from, Boards of Canada, and that kind of whole sort of the sample of because they use tons of samples, and a lot of them are very nostalgic sounding, and it's because a lot of the stuff they lift is from kind of 80s,
the 80s and the 90s, yeah.
Yeah, TV shows and sort of theme tunes and things like that.
Yeah, so James, if you are listening, I know you said that you listen to the podcast from time to time. I'm working out a list for you, and hopefully I'll have it done by the end of the week, because what you're asking to do is weird. But I'm going to try to figure it out.
Weird always sounds good. That's the whole thing with Canada. It's just the weirdness is is a product of the way they actually record and generate the sounds. Because if they just did it in Reason or Cubase or some other, software, it would sound, in terms of the notes and stuff, it would sound the same, but it would lose, I'd say, 90% of its feel, which is kind of the whole deal with those guys.
And there's something to be said in James's case. Recording a band live gives you, I don't know, a different experience. And I know I always go back to Van Halen 1, but like that's the most accessible album I can think of to tell people to listen to if you want to hear what it sounds like for a band.
The Doors.
Yeah, or the Doors. Yeah, the Doors are good too. Like they
recorded
playing.
live. First album's all live.
Yeah, they're just playing in a room together and it's being recorded, which kind of goes into our main episode. Hey, this is Chris jumping in, and I just wanted to stop you for a second and tell you to go to electricjam.com. On the new site layout, we have a whole different perspective now. We're kind of leaning more towards recording, and so we have a recording section that tells you all about mixing, mastering, DAWs, pretty much everything that you would want to know about recording. So if you haven't checked it out yet, please go check it out. It's a whole new thing. We have a mastering course, Mastering 101, and it gives you everything that you need to start mastering your own songs at home. Anyways, I'll let you get back to the show. Topic today, backing tracks and using them live. And I've got a bomb to drop.
Ugh, I don't like it.
Yeah.
Not the bomb, but what you just said, the bit.
But yeah, I kind of wanted to get your what do you think about it?
I don't like it.
Sure.
I think it's anathema to live music. I think if you want to be in a band and you want to play live, you should be able to play what you record live. Kind of goes without saying. I mean, obviously, if you're a three-piece and you have samples and loops and stuff like that, that's fair enough. And you're triggering that through a laptop, fair enough. But if you're taking a whole... this is the thing that Devin Townsend does this a lot, and it kind of annoys me, where he'll just be him playing a guitar on stage and then there's nothing else. And then it's just... Obviously, he makes music. There's like a cacophony of sound. And it's all... that's a backing track. And it kind of just looks like a really shit karaoke at that stage, even though it's not, and it's good. I'm not a fan of Devin Townsend new stuff, but it's very good. It's very accomplished music. I certainly couldn't do anything near as good as that. But yeah, I don't like it when bands. It just sounds false. And I mean, you look at a band like Slipknot, and there's 9 of them, and they're all doing stuff. That's live music. Or Arcade Fire, on the other end of the spectrum. Got violins, got celloists. Godspeed, Black Emperor, same deal. There's about 12 of them. Some people are literally just playing like a triangle, but they're there. They're on tour. They got the easiest job in the band. But every noise that you hear on the record is within reason, is done live. And that's the whole point of live music. It should be kind of it doesn't have to be an exact representation of the album, but it should be close and it should have a good feel of the track.
I agree. And for a while, okay, let me set this up, because I do think that backing tracks are okay in certain instances. And we had a keyboard player for a little while named Kyle, and he was great. And he really added a lot to our songs. And when he graduated college, he moved back home. So we were kind of out of a keyboard player. But I still had all of his tracks. So for a couple of songs, I needed those tracks live.
You did the dirty.
For our band to work.
Yeah.
So for those songs, we would play to a click track, and we would have his parts in there. And
that's fair enough.
A lot of artists do that. Like if you have a symphony in your song, but you're a 4-piece metal band, like...
Yeah, but I'm talking about more like when it's huge acts with millions and millions and millions of pounds going into their production. that's when it becomes a bit. It leaves a kind of a bad taste in your mouth. If it's kind of a small band in the local scene, or kind of indie band who's just playing clubs, it's fair enough. It's hard enough being in a band touring when you with 4 people, let alone trying to bring like an additional 5 or 6 people to do all the other stuff. But if you're like a huge band with you're earning millions of dollars a year on one tour, backing tracks aren't okay. I don't think in the grand scheme of things, you should be doing most of the stuff live. Because
there's a classy way to do it, and the classy way to do it is what Deftones did. And for a while there, they were adding samples and they were adding sounds into their songs.
Frank,
and it started on Around the Fur without Frank Delgado.
He's actually credited on Adrenaline, so he was in the band then. He's got credit.
Right.
On
he was kind of like the 5th member, but didn't get a whole lot of credit. And Placebo has a guy like that also. That was the 4th member of Placebo the entire time. Rarely did you see him on stage, but he would be playing extra guitar parts, an extra bass part, or a keyboard part. And finally, they were just like, you know what? There's so many samples and songs now and so many keyboard parts. Let's just put Frank on stage. And in that kind of instance, if you're that level of a band, just do that. You could have one guy triggering all the samples and playing keyboard parts, and you wouldn't need a backing track.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. Yeah, that's
cooler.
Thanks, New Metal. Thanks for bringing the DJ and the sampler. But yeah, I think the angle of this is though is when you have like bands like the Eagles doing it, which I think that's the one you want to lead into. And I don't really follow the Eagles or listen to them or anything. But so what were they doing that was
okay? Okay, so
made me dislike them even more than I already do.
Yeah, I can't stand the Eagles. And we had this conversation about 3.5 years ago. And I knew from that point on, we were going to be friends. When you said, I hate the Eagles. And I was like, I don't think he's referencing the Big Lebowski. I think he's serious. And I was like, well, I'm serious. I hate them too. And you were like, yeah, they're rubbish. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, we're gonna be friends. Because I mean, like they have the one song, that everybody likes, and it's Hotel California. But
I didn't know. So you were allowed to say that. They're not going to get a copyright strike for saying the name of the song or something.
No.
I mean, I just didn't really care about them, but really that much. I just think they're a bit of a one-hit wonder, wishy-washy, middle of the road, poor man's Leonard Skinner, waste of time band. But is when all this copyright.
They're Leonard Skinner if they didn't rock.
That's what I mean. It's the poor man, boring poor man's Leonard Skinner. So some guy, it's yeah. But it was all the copyright strikes they were doing, and attacking, people trying to teach people to how to play their songs on guitar on YouTube. Yeah, with like 100.
Rick Beato talked about that.
Yeah, it's not particularly when you're an extremely wealthy band. It just doesn't sit well. Really, I don't think.
No, you want
going
more
after the
money?
Little guy, crushing the little guy. Yeah,
exactly.
Way to go, the Eagle.
But you know what? It's coming back around because this is it. I wouldn't say it's gone viral yet, but there's a couple of people that have noticed this, and there's a channel that I watch called Wings of Pegasus, and it's like this 80s dude rocker, but he's not old enough to have actually experienced that. He's like our age, so maybe he did as a kid, but he has the 80s haircut, and the band name is Wings of Pegasus. But he stopped doing guitar content a long time ago and started investigating who is using auto-tune live, right?
Okay.
And those videos are always fun for me because a lot of artists do. And you're like, wow, I didn't even realize that. A lot of them are like, yeah, I knew that just from listening to it.
The Deftones definitely don't.
No, absolutely not. That's hit or miss.
I've seen them like 9 times. I don't think I've ever heard Gino sing in tune once.
I've seen them do really, really well, and I've seen them do But
yeah, same. When they're on, they're on. But When they're
So-
not, my God, they are like not even like amateur. They're like it's really. I saw them in Nottingham about 15 years ago, and Perfect Circle were meant to be playing, but which would have been an amazing gig because it was just when what's the album with Judith on it called?
Murdenons.
Yeah, that had just come out, and that's a really good album. I really like that album. And that had just come out, and it was
for me.
Yeah, so they were just touring with the Deftones, and I had a friend at Nottingham Uni, so we went to go and see him. And yeah, Perfect Circle didn't turn up because they got lost, so they didn't play. Then the Deftones came on and early, and they were just terrible. They were just awful. The sound was bad. Chino just didn't really sing that well, and yeah, he definitely wasn't using auto-tune though to give the boy credit.
No, and when he got sober, he got a lot better. Like if you go back to the videos and where he's like overweight and stuff, and he's like really struggling to sing, that's because he had a drinking problem, I think. And he's since like I was watching Crosses live on their tour. They're on tour right now, and he's excellent, and he's in shape again, and he looks really, really good. So maybe the next time Deftones come around, it'll be really, really good. But yeah, they're definitely not using auto-tune. However, the Eagles, this Wings of Pegasus guy, he's like, let's see if they're using auto-tune. And he's like, it's worse than auto-tune. And what he did is he pulled up 2 different performances. One of them was here in the US.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And another one was over the pond in your area. And they were 3 months apart. And so he took both of the tracks and put them on top of each other. And they are exactly.
Oh, no way. So they were just miming.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's...
Even the a cappella intro to Desperado, he laid the tracks over each other and he was like, look, it doesn't matter how good of a singer you are. This is absolutely impossible to do.
Yeah, because there's so much variance in the breath and the climate and the humidity would affect everything.
Right.
There's no way the wave files could be exactly the same. That's impossible.
And they are throughout the entire song.
Wow.
He goes through the whole song.
I don't even want to know how much they charge for a ticket to see him play, but I imagine it would be hundreds and hundreds of pounds.
Oh, more than that. If you're in the front row, I bet you're paying $5,000 or $6,000.
What?
Yeah.
Christ. I would want all my money back and a written apology from whatever the guy's called in the Eagles.
Yeah, exactly. Don Henley. So this is the thing, though. So this kind of led me down a rabbit hole, and I started looking up other artists that might be doing this, and Kiss came up. Yeah. And there's a lot of mistakes where Paul Stanley's like not near the mic, yet you hear his voice. There's bass parts being played when Gene Simmons doesn't have his hand in the right place. There's people like picking right. There's people like picking these videos apart. And then another one was Motley Crue when Mick Mars was still in the band. And it's a really good one because Tommy Lee hasn't even sat down yet. And you hear 2 cymbal hits like they're about to kick into a song.
Wow.
Maybe he hasn't even sat down yet. Yeah, exactly. So he like runs and speeds up and gets on beat with it, but it's clearly a backing track. The same thing with Nikki Sixx's bass. And I think this might be why Mick Mars was on top of the business stuff where they were, screwing him out of money. I think this is why Mick Mars stepped away, because I'm sure Mick Mars, dude is a beast guitarist and his solo project is awesome if you haven't heard it. So he probably was like, there's no way I'm going to do this. There's no way.
But it makes sense because if you want to
mime my guitar.
Yeah, if you consider yourself a credible musician, that's almost. I mean, it's complete heresy, isn't it? Like even if you're at the level of those guys where you're literally just like shipped out wherever just to make money because you're effectively kind of a nostalgic brand dollar,
you're a legacy band. Yeah.
Yeah, legacy band. It's just nostalgia porn, isn't it, at this stage? So, but you should still be playing. I mean, surely it'd just be so boring. I mean, this is the kind of thing where they're almost, you can just see, they'll just be like, no, we'll just sell our likenesses, and they can do some kind of AI projection of us, and people, it'd be the same. No one will know. Like kind of Project Blue Book or something.
Well, I mean, so I was talking to my mom about it. My mother was a musician in the 70s, and she had been in bands and stuff like that. She played piano with a ton of different people in the Georgia area. And I was talking to her about it, and she said, yeah, well, they're all my age now. I was like, yeah, so is Metallica. And she was like, oh.
Willie Nelson is older than all of them. Paul McCartney, he still plays live.
Bob Dylan.
Glastonbury. Everyone was saying, his voice isn't as good. It's like, he's 80 years old. Come on, at least he's having a go. And he did sound pretty damn good, I thought.
I mean, of course he's not going to sound like he did in the 70s with the Beatles. I mean, he's just not going to sound like that. But, yeah, and the Rolling Stones, they still put on a show. And I'm pretty sure that's all real. Like, I didn't find any videos on them.
It's quite sinister because they all seem to be bands as well that, well, this is my subjective opinion here, but they're legacy, with the exception of Kiss, because I do quite like Kiss. They're sort of legacy bands that that aren't very good. They've just been around for that long that people tend to sort of go, oh yeah.
Like okay, you're not going to.
I mean, Christ.
You're not going to say what I thought you were going to say. What I thought you were going to say where they were brands.
Well, brands as well, yeah.
Kiss is a brand.
For sure. Kiss is like the ultimate. Like, they started the whole thing, where it's just the business is now such a huge component of what they're doing that the actual live performance is just, can't we just do this instead and just go? But if you're going to go on stage, put makeup on, and that squeeze yourself into one of those little suits that they wear.
Corsets.
The least you could do, is just play. But I suppose then, like, we don't have to practice now. We can spend more time.
Right. Yeah, we're gonna have to go to rehearsal.
It's not good. There should be way more. There should be way more uproar about this, because if people are paying thousands of dollars for a ticket to see a band play live and they're not playing live, it's false advertising, and it's really, really not good of the artist either to be okay with that. I mean, I don't have any instances of seeing this live, but I remember I went to Glastonbury in 2008, and the headlining act is always every year that I haven't been, it's been amazing. It's been like Radiohead, Oasis. It's so many, like, actually I don't think Oasis have ever done it. Like Blur, just always like something really good, like Paul McCartney. And then the year I went, it was Jay-Z, and I was like, I mean, I don't mind Jay-Z, but I'm not massively into. Well, I like hip hop, but I don't kind of like Jay-Z that much, if that makes sense.
No, that makes sense. I'm with you on that.
It's kind of like pop hop, isn't it? Jay-Z is sort of. It's not like Jurassic 5. It's sort of like hip hop for kids, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Either way, I wasn't particularly like enamored by the idea of him headlining Glastonbury. But I thought, you know what? He's got some cool tracks, and I'm sure he'll put on a good show. And then he literally walked out onto the Pyramid Stage, and the Pyramid Stage is massive. And that was it.
I've seen it in videos. Yeah.
Just him. Just literally him with a microphone. I mean, there was no one else there. That was the show. It was I don't know. I was like, what's going on? Why at least have a band or something, or someone playing drums and bass, or some dancers, or some people backing singers or something. But it was just so. It was like it's almost like he walked out, plugged the CD player into the PA system, and then just rapped along to it.
Right. Which is boring. And a lot of pop stars do that. But always have a lot of respect for the pop stars that don't. Like Madonna has always had a full backing band. I saw Lady Gaga, and that was awesome. She has a full band. So it makes the songs like I was waiting for Bad Romance because I love that song. I don't know why I love that song. I don't know. And I was waiting for that to come on. And when it didn't sound like the CD, you know? It didn't sound like the actual
It shouldn't
track.
live. It should be like the thing I love about going to see a band live is that it always sounds way heavier, way more frenetic, and there's loads more energy. Like there's a band called Interpol who were quite big. They're not that big anymore, but they were quite big a few years ago.
Oh, I used to love them.
They're great. That first album, oh my god. But I went to see them when they first came over on their first tour, and their album's quite. It's not subdued, but it's quite reserved. Do you know what I mean? There's not really.
I agree. It's a lot like
really
Joy Division.
Yeah, but live, it's completely different. You know, there's like sort of like almost like disco beats going on, and like with the music that you just doesn't really come across as on the album. Particularly on the second album, they were doing some stuff off that too, and it was kind of a lot more like upbeat, and everyone was like jumping, and yeah, it's like live is just it's a whole different thing. It's a different interpretation of the song that you recorded one day, you know, maybe a year ago or 50 years ago. But it's how you do it that day that counts.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
That's the difference. That's because it can always be different, you know, and that's why I love about like Bruce Springsteen. That's why he's the boss, because he comes out and plays every time like it's the last time he's ever going to do it. And I've seen him like 3 times, and every single time it's been completely different. I once saw him twice on the same tour, pretty much back to back, and the shows were completely different. Now that's, that tells you everything you need to know about that guy. Because most bands, I've seen Slipknot I saw them twice on the same tour once, and the shows were identical. They just changed the name of the location.
Right.
That was it. The set was the same. The pattern between the songs was the same. You know, are you ready? That was all the same. But Bruce, it wasn't. He changed it. It was a completely different show. Different feel, everything.
And he like rearranged a song order and stuff like that.
Yeah, they didn't even play the same songs. Yeah. The songs were about different order. They played the songs differently. They did different, you know, he extend the solo part. You know, the guy on the drums will do a drum solo and he'll be like, hey, you play the keyboard more. And then he'll just do some like crazy keyboard, you know, solo part. And it's all just off the cuff. And it's amazing in front of like 50,000 people.
Yeah, see, that's the power of live music. And you know, the thing that gets me about the Motley Crue video is if you actually go and watch that video, and not the breakdown of them, you know, cheating, but if you actually go watch the video, for some reason they don't have a taped Vince Neil. They're letting him sing. So you have the bass taped and you have the drums on tape, and that's just playing, and you're letting him try to sing.
Yeah.
It's awful. If anyone should be on the tape, it should be him.
I don't know. I've never met a single person in my entire life who likes Motley Crue. They're one of those bands, I just don't know who the hell likes them, but a lot of people apparently do. I've just never met them.
I mean, I loved them when I was a kid because, you know,
I think it's because I think they weren't big in the UK. They just weren't a thing here. It's the same with Van Halen. He wasn't particularly big in the UK either.
Interesting.
Van Halen wasn't. I mean, I grew up listening to rock music, but I don't ever remember listening to Van Halen once when I was younger. That could just be me, but I'm pretty certain none of my friends were onto rock music. You know, when we were growing up, it was like 50 of us. No one would be like, "Oh, Van Halen." Never. Queen, man. Yeah. Metallica.
Oh yeah, no, I loved Queen.
Deftones, not Deftones. Black Sabbath, Zeppelin, Beatles, Stones. You know, but never. I know that's a bit earlier than that, but no, it wasn't a thing. But then it wasn't. The internet wasn't around then, so it's kind of harder, I guess, for bands to be global as easy as it is now.
And see, as much as I want to tell you to go back and listen to like the first 3 Van Halen albums, I don't know if you would appreciate it, because it's
I mean,
going to
I know
sound
it. I know I've
familiar.
heard Van Halen. I've heard Van Halen on like, you know, rock compilation tapes that I used to have back in the day.
Because everything that came after was ripping off Van Halen. So if you listen to Van Halen, you're going to be like, oh, this sounds very familiar. But it's because every band that came in the 80s and even in the early 90s were ripping Van Halen off.
Like Europe, they're a pretty big Van Halen ripoff.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, so, I mean, I guess the ethics of this whole thing is what bothers me as a musician. If I can't do it, then I won't. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
if for some reason I couldn't get on stage ever again, or I couldn't keep up, I just would quit. And that's the thing about the people who are doing it. The people who are miming on stage like the Eagles have so much money that their great grandkids are going to be millionaires. So like, why?
Yeah, why
You
waste
know?
everyone's time? Why? Because one, it sullies your reputation as a band. It sullies everything you've done. Because if you could love the, you know, I'm sure there's people out there that
I didn't
do
even
actually
think
like
about
you.
that perspective. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
But if you say you've been a lifelong fan of the Eagles, right? You've loved them your whole life for whatever reason. I don't know. Maybe you haven't had any friends that are into music, so you basically somehow heard Hotel California on the radio, and that was it for you. And you go through your whole life, you never saw them. Then you had kids, and then you had a job, and then you got busy, and then they didn't really do much or tour. I don't know what they do, but so they come back, go on a tour. You finally going to go see the Eagles, and you're doing all right for money. And you drop like $800 on a ticket for you and your missus to go, and then you go, and it'll be in some horrible venue, because all venues are horrible these days. I know it's like in the US, but in the UK, it's just a horrid experience going to see like live music in a big venue. It stinks.
Oh, yeah.
The beer's expensive. It's just people everywhere. You know,
Yeah.
you can't go to
Stadiums
toilet.
are
You
the
go to
worst.
toilets like swimming through like 3 feet of urine. It's disgusting. It's noisy. It's horrible. And then, you watch them, and then the miming. Like, how annoyed would you be? Like, it completely ruined any kind of respect you had for them. And it made you think, well, how long have they been doing this for? Do they always mime? Do they write their own songs? It's just not a nice. It ruins any kind of reputation that they'd have, in my opinion. I mean, not that they had it in my eyes in the first place, but
I didn't even think about it that way.
well,
But
like
yeah,
also,
I mean,
to be fair, Hotel California. The first time you hear it, it's an okay song. It's like a nice kind of pop rock song. But when you've heard it like a billion times, you're just like, well, come on. And when you listen to their other stuff, it's just like weak beer by comparison. You're just like, well, no, okay.
yeah, definitely.
And now they're miming on a tour where they're charging thousands of dollars for a ticket. That's just a huge, huge no for me.
No, I'm with you. I didn't even think about it from that angle of being a fan of one of those bands. And I mean, you could basically do the same thing at home. Just turn up your stereo like really, really loud, and I don't know, get
why bother? Why bother? An artist plays live. Like bands play live because you'd like to think, obviously, because they make money doing it. But it's also having the opportunity to play something you've created live. Because anyone who's played music live knows it's like a full-on like our body experience. It's like it's as close to, I don't know. It's hard to describe, but it's unlike anything else. And to cheapen that by going, yeah, we're just gonna mime. Like,
Yeah,
how do they not feel stupid? How do they not feel like, call yourself a musician? How do you not feel like an idiot doing that in front of all those people?
I mean, I would feel like such a fraud. And there was a really good interview.
That's what I mean. It's ridiculous.
There was an interview, and I think it was from behind the scenes of the Lux Eterna video with James Hetfield. And the interviewer was talking about touring. And he was like, oh, yeah, can't wait to get on the road and try out these new songs. And she was like, do you still love it as much as you did when you were 20, And he was like, oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Every single time you get on stage, it's you get that rush, and the crowd is singing the lyrics back to you. And Kurt goes for a solo, and everybody's taking pictures, and it's such a rush, and it's so much fun. And but if you're not playing, you're not getting that.
You know what the takeaway from all this is? For me,
what?
Even the Eagles don't like the Eagles music. They can't even bother to play it live. They're like, it's so pedestrian, it's so throwaway. Why don't we just pretend to play it? No one cares. I don't care. I certainly don't care. I just want my paycheck.
I can't even put in the effort to play this song anymore.
Yeah. Switching from G to C to A. It's just, oh no.
Constantly standing on the road on Winslow, Arizona, something. Who cares? Yeah, no, I'm with you. Nobody wants to listen to the Eagles. Even the Eagles don't want to listen to the Eagles.
Yeah, well, there you go. Mystery solved.
Yeah, that sucks too, because out of all of them, I think Joe is actually talented. He had a really good rock career, before that, but everybody else in the Eagles are just, I don't know. Yeah, I'm with you. The takeaway here is even the Eagles don't want to play the Eagles. And I don't blame them.
But they still want your money, so as long as you're willing to pay to see them. But it's almost like going to, I don't know, like if he likes money that much, why doesn't he just start an OnlyFans or something?
That's even better.
Where he could just put his songs on and mime to it, and people could just watch him do it. I mean, it's OnlyFans. He could do other stuff as well if he wanted to, but what I mean is, it's just
don't put that image in my mind.
If it's just the soulless cash grab, then just, I don't know, just re-release another album. Like, don't tour if you don't want to do it. You should love it. But yeah. Anyway, so what's on the agenda for next week?
So next week we're gonna have another special episode, and we're gonna dig into something that is near and dear to Richard and I, and that's movie soundtracks.
I thought you were going to say the Eagles back catalog.
Yeah, no, we're going to dig through all of their songs, every single one of them. No, yeah, we're gonna talk about movie soundtracks, because it's become more of an art now. I guess it always has been, but when people like Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross are doing movies now, I don't know. I mean, there's some really cool stuff going on. So we're going to talk about our favorite composers that are doing movie soundtracks and talk about some of our favorite ones. So we will see you next week.
I just said I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, me too. So yeah, we'll see you next week.
Yeah, I messed up the ending there. It was doing so well. Okay.
No, yeah, we're just gonna stop. We'll see you next week.
We'll just amble out the back, like a couple of drunks.
I'll do a dramatic fade out, and it's gonna go into our theme song right about now. Bye. Well, that was about the stupidest way to end an episode, but it's perfect. I love it.